What's up, everyone? So we just figured with the nutrition challenge coming up, even though we're gonna hand out pamphlets to kind of explain a bunch of this stuff, we'll just do kind of like a quick run through video of everything that we're kind of talking about, hit some main points, and then we should be good. So for the nutrition challenge, there's three kind of diets you can choose from: zone, macros, or paleo. So we're just gonna kind of dive into each one of them. So paleo is probably the most simple. Simple doesn't mean it's easy. Simple just means there's not a lot of rules to it. And that is basically, you just say no to grains, legumes, dairy, and sugar. That's it. You can eat as much quantity of anything else that you want. Basically, you're trying to eat like the cavemen do. So you're avoiding those four things. In the piece of paper right here, it will be listed, what is considered a grain and legumes and dairy and all that kind of stuff. And then we also have some things that are just in moderation, like for example, honey, Greek yogurt, sweet potatoes, coconut milk, almond milk, all that kind of stuff. It kind of explains it. Because you just don't want to eat, 70,000 nuts every single day, because you can do that for paleo. You can eat a bunch of, cashews or whatever. So that's kind of what we're looking for paleo. So that's basically the paleo version. Pretty simple, pretty easy. Next one is going to be the zone. Now, the zone is kind of confusing to a lot of people. So think of it, the zone is basically macros, but they tried to make it in a simpler format. So what is the zone? The zone does blocks instead of macros, if you want to think of it like that. So what is a block? A block is 7 grams of protein, 9 grams of carb, and 1.5 grams of fat. All three of those things equal one block. Now, that seems very confusing, but there's a cheat sheet that we'll give you that tells you everything. So basically, for protein, for the most part, 1 ounce equals 1 block. So it's pretty simple. You just put it on a scale. If it's 5 ounces, that's 5 blocks of protein. So that's kind of simple in that sense. For the carbs, it'll have a list, like, a cup of strawberries is 1 block, or half an apple is 1 block, or a third of a banana is 1 block. Whatever, you kind of get the general idea. So that's kind of how we'll do that. And then they have the same list for fat. So we'll give that to you if you want to do that. And that'll kind of be your cheat sheet that you can look at, and it will kind of help you. So that's what a block is. Now, the next question is, why do we do blocks? Well, they want each meal to be consistent. So they want every single meal you do, whether you're doing a 1 block snack or you're doing a 5 block dinner or whatever, it's always going to equal 40% of the calories comes from carbs, 40% from 30% from protein, and 30% from fat. That is considered a block. That's why they call it the zone, is because if you eat that way, it's supposed to get you in the zone, right? Feeling good. So that's what they do that's what a block is. So that's why they eat that way. Now the question is, how many blocks? Now there's 2 ways you can do this. If you know what your lean body mass is, then cool, you can kind of plug it into there. If you don't, on this piece of paper, there will be a link that you can go to. That is the zone website that you can kind of fill out a bunch of information. It'll give you like basically a rough estimate, basically where you should start your blocks, okay? But for the sake of, while we're here, we'll do this real fast. So the prescription is lean body mass times your activity level divided by 7 will equal how many blocks that you have. So what is lean body mass? Lean body mass is how much you weigh taking away all the fat. Well, how do I figure that out? Well, if I know what my body fat percentage is, then I can use the formula. So let's say if I weighed 200 pounds, right, and I had 10% body fat, then I would do 200 times 10%, which would be times 0.1. And that would give me a number. That number would be 20, okay? Then I would take that same number, 200, because that's my body weight. I would minus 20, because that's telling me that's how much weight is in fat. And then that would give me a number which is 180. So that is my lean body mass, is 180 right there. So I would take 180, and then I would times it by my activity level. So here's kind of your activity level. For most everyone, we say to start at a 0.7, just because most people are trying to lose weight. So that's kind of why we want to think of that. So 0.7, you times it by 0.7. So if I times 180 by 0.7, that gives me 126, okay? Then I'm gonna divide 126 by 7, because that's how many grams of protein that we eat in a block, and that's like their formula. And that's gonna give me a number, and that number is 18. So 18 is how many blocks that I would eat per day. Now, when we say 18 blocks, I think people get confused and they think, okay, 18 blocks, so that's 6 blocks of protein, 6 fat, 6 carbs, because 6 times 3 equals 18. No, it's 18 blocks of protein, 18 blocks of carbs, and 18 blocks of fat each day. So if you were having 5 meals, right? If I was having breakfast, a snack, lunch, snack, and then dinner, I could proportion that however I want so it equals 18. Whether that's something like, you know, I could do a 4-block breakfast and then a 2 snack and then a 5 lunch and then a 2 snack and then a 5 dinner, and that would give me 18. Whatever you need to do, it doesn't really matter to us as long as you're trying to eat, you know, 3 to 5 meals a day and you're getting those 18 blocks per day. So that's kind of what we do for the blocks. Now, the biggest thing to understand with the blocks and why we do this stuff, why we're giving you 3 options, is because you want to pick which one's going to work best for you, which means something that you can stick to, which means this block prescription, 18, 18, 18, right? 18 protein, 18 carbs, 18 fat, is what we would call a baseline, meaning that's where you start. And then maybe you fiddle with it to see what works for you. Maybe you feel like you do better with more carbs. So maybe you take away some fat and you add in some more blocks of carbs. Maybe you feel like you do better with more fat. So maybe I do 18 blocks of protein, 16 blocks of carbs, and then I do 20 blocks of fat because I feel like I need a little bit more fat. Maybe I do everything the same and I just double the fat. So instead of 18 blocks of fat, I'm doing, you know, 36 blocks of fat. Whatever you feel that you need, you kind of just got to mix and play with it to see what's going to work best for you as an individual. But if it doesn't work, like if I did this for 4 weeks and I felt like I was doing great, and I did it for another 4 weeks and I didn't see much, then maybe I fiddle around with it and then I have 4 weeks of trying this new block prescription and seeing how it works. And if it doesn't work, then I go back to the baseline. I go back to my 18, 18, 18, settle into that for a few weeks, and then I try something new. And then if that doesn't work, I go back to the baseline again. That way I'm finding what works best, because what works best for me isn't going to work best for you. So you kind of got to find out what's going to work for you. So that's our zone prescription. Like I said, we're going to have a bunch of stuff in here that's going to tell you everything you need to know along with the cheat sheet. But if you don't know your body fat, then you can just find the formula in the Zone website and do it that way. So there's that. The last one we're going to talk about is macros, okay? So for macros, this is going to be our basic prescription for how you're going to find out how many grams of protein, how many grams of carbs, and how many grams of fat you eat per day. So the easiest way to do this is my body weight in pounds. And then I find my activity level, and then we times it. So let's kind of do it. Let's say, for example, for the sake of math, we do the same thing we did on the Zone. A 200-pound person, okay? And their activity level, okay, they're active. They'll be in this paper we give you, it'll tell you exactly, okay, what's sedentary considered, what's moderately active, what's active, and what's very active, right? For now, we'll just say that they're active. So their activity level is 1.0. So we'll do their body weight times their activity level. So if we do their body weight times their activity level, 200 times 1.0 equals 200. So that's how many grams of protein they're going to be eating each day, right? The next one is protein, you times it by 1.33. So I know that my protein is 200 because I just did the math of 1.0, okay? So now I'll go 200 times 1.33, and this will give me my carbs. That number is 266. So that's how many grams of carbs I'm going to eat per day. And then the last one is I'm going to take my protein number, which is 200. I'm going to times it by 4. So 200 times 4 equals, you guessed it, 800. And then I'm going to divide that by 9. And that's going to give me 88.88. So we'll just say 89 to make life easier. 89 grams of fat. That would be what I am eating each day. Now, when it comes to macros, the only difference between this and the Zone basically is that you're going to need an app for the macros. Where the Zone, I can just kind of, keep it in my head, or I can write, okay, 4-block meal for breakfast, 2-block meal for lunch. I'm at 6 blocks right now and I have to go to 18, right? So I still have 12 blocks left over. I can mix that into 3 meals wherever. With this one, you're going to have to use an app. So you're going to kind of have to figure out what app works for you. Now, we have some recommendations of what we like, but once again, it's whatever works for you. Doesn't really matter to me. As long as it helps you get your numbers, cool. But you are going to have to weigh and measure. With the Zone and macros, you do have to weigh and measure, okay? Once I figure out this formula, then this is what I eat each day. Now, the goal is, or what we're considering good is, I'm plus or minus 5 grams each day, meaning that's my buffer. I can be anywhere from 195 to 205 grams of protein and I'm good. If I'm at like 170, then I miss the mark, then I'm not good for that day, right? We want to be above or below 5 grams. Same with the thing with the carbs. I can be anywhere from 261 to 271 and I'm good, right? We're giving you a little bit of room. As long as you're somewhat consistent, you're going to be just fine, okay? And the same thing with the fat. So that's what we're going to do there, and that is your macros. The only thing to keep in mind when it comes to this body weight is if I want to lose weight, then I would suggest putting in the body weight that you would like to be. If I was 225 pounds and I want to be 200 pounds, instead of making that big of a jump, that 25-pound jump, maybe I do a 10 or 15-pound jump first, just so it's not as drastic and hard on me. And then over time, I can take it lower and lower. So maybe, if I'm 225 and I want to be 200, maybe I start by putting it in as 215 as my body weight, right? Because that's the goal that I want to get to first. So I put in this formula for 215. Let's say in 4 weeks, I get to 215. Cool. I'm already halfway there, right? So now I can do the formula after 4 weeks, let's say, and now I can put in 200 as my goal weight, and now I can do this for the next 4 weeks and see how it works for me. Instead of going from 225 to 200, that's just kind of a big jump. I would say if it's 20 pounds or more of a jump that you want to lose, I would take smaller increments just because it's more realistic, right? If you're going from eating 3,000 calories a day, that when you drop down, you're eating barely 2,000, it's going to be really hard to stick with that. So you want to take little small jumps so it's sustainable over time. So that's what you want to think there on the macros. The only thing to remember with all of these is that we are eating, the goal is each day you're eating 500 grams in weight of fruits and veggies. In weight. So I know it's kind of confusing when this is 200 grams of protein and you're looking at grams. That is not in weight. That's grams of protein. So like if you eat 1 ounce of chicken, it's 7 grams of protein. Even though it weighs 1 ounce, it's 7 grams. When it comes to the fruits and veggies, we're talking about weighing that in terms of how much it weighs. So if you put an apple on a scale, it's probably going to be like 200 grams. Boom. If I eat an apple, I got 200 right there. Boom. I put a banana on, it's 150. Well, I've already eaten my apple. That's 200. I add 150 to that. Now I'm at 350 of my 500 that I have to eat. So that's how we're going to do this. So regardless if you're doing paleo, macros, or zone, you have to eat 500 grams in weight of your fruits and veggies. Okay? Like we said, all of this will be in the pamphlets that we will give you to kind of help you, but this is just kind of like a dry run through of what we're kind of going to do. Hopefully this makes sense, but that will start, let's see, when is it going to start? January 13th is when it's going to start. So that's what we're going to do. If you have any questions, reach out to coaches. We'll have some pamphlets at the gym. You can kind of take a look at if you're undecisive, you don't really know what you want to do yet, or maybe ask a coach, they can give you their opinion, whatever you feel you're going to do best at. But once you pick one, whether it's macros, whether it's zone or paleo, you stick with it for the entire 8 weeks of the challenge. You can't flip-flop back and forth. We got to kind of find one that's consistent and that we can get some results with. So that's kind of what we're going to do for the nutrition challenge. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Good luck.